HQ OAMPO office, and we are setting up right now and we'll be starting shortly. At the moment we have all participants on mute. Are we able to open it up?
I can unmute, or we can, they can ask questions by raising their hand or typing a question in.
Okay.
You want to try and unmute?
Let's unmute and let people say hello and they're here.
I'm going to move this chair. I think I'll switch chairs.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you have to unmute everybody individually?
I shouldn't have to. I should have an option. I just
Oh, thank you.
That's great. And then I remute.
Okay, so we've hit the off button to get an idea of who's online. So if you have a chance, you can kind of come on in and tell us. Help. I'm wondering if anyone can hear us here in the HQ office. I'm not getting a response. Perhaps you could text us a message.
I can hear, but there
Okay.
seems to be kind of a background hum.
Okay.
So we will, when we
So who is that speaking? Where are you from?
This is Jeremy Hudgens in the Atlanta office.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else wants to share with us where they're from?
This is Patty Casey from Recap.
Hi, this is Tashara McCain, Cleveland office.
Hi, sir. Looks like it appears that we have about 22 that have logged on so far. Any other offices out there? Okay. Great. We're 2 minutes behind, but we're waiting for folks to log on because we anticipate about 6 people in the session. Thanks for holding, everyone. We're going to wait just a couple more minutes.
The hell's that? Oh, come on.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is Cindy Tilton from OAMPO HQ office. I'm here today joined with Linda Oisey from OC, works with the Federal Practice Group, and also Margaret Postig, did I say it correctly? We do have quite a few people online, and we have some in the office here today. This afternoon, we're going to have a RAD resource desk demonstration by the contractor. She's worked extensively with Tom Davis, Marilyn Edge, and Jen Larson, and she also has had some interaction input with Lori Farrell from funding. We're going to take probably about an hour to run through. If you have any questions, she'll let you know how you can ask her questions and when she would like to take them. And basically, she's going to, just to kickstart this off, she's going to sign in as a sample branch chief to sort of show you how this process kicks off and a branch chief would assign someone to the resource desk. Okay, so following this, we will have a Q&A around 3 p.m. Is that right?
Yeah, they should have an invite.
An invite for us.
With the conference call number.
Okay, we'll provide more information on that at the end of this presentation. So, are you all set? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. So we use the RAD resource desk to track the RAD transactions as they're going through. And what we've done is created a page specifically for OAMPO. And within your group, there are several different types of users. We have the point of contact who will assign it initially. We have a branch chief, and then we have the specialist and the funding specialist. And it just goes down a chain, basically a waterfall of who is going to be working on this asset. And you'll all use the same main page. So one thing to kind of just remember is based on what your logon or what your role is, you will have a different landing page. And as Cindy mentioned, I'm going to start today logged on as a branch chief just to give you an idea of what that would look like. And so I'm just going to go ahead and log on here as we talk. As I walk through, if you have questions, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you. You also, on the right side of your GoToMeeting screen, you should have a place where you can type in questions, and we'll stop periodically and check for questions there. And then at the end, if it's easier to unmute, and if we want to do that again, we can try that. There's a lot of people calling in, and then keeping you all muted just helps to reduce the background noise for all of you guys, which is why we went with that on this one. Last night, I mailed everybody who I had information on contact information. It came from the RAD resource desk, and it gave you a logon ID and a password to access the resource desk, and it told you what type of access you had. So it would have indicated you were a branch chief, or you were an asset management specialist, or you were the funding specialist. So all of you should have logon credentials for this site. This is all live. I would say we were about 90%. We did have one unexpected change last week in the way we're going to do one process, so we've had to make a few changes to the pages itself, but we'll have those operational, I'm expecting, by Tuesday morning. So, and I'll point that out when we get to it. But otherwise, everything else is operational. I'm kicking email notifications back on this afternoon or tomorrow morning, so you may start to see email notifications, and we'll kind of talk about that as we go through. And if you have, I will confess right up, I am a quick talker, so please feel free to raise your hand, say slow down, show me that again, talk about that some more, and we will be happy to do that for you. So I've logged on now as a branch chief. So what's going to happen when there's a new PBRA chap assigned and loaded to the resource desk, an OAMPO point of contact is going to get an email message. They're going to go on and assign a branch chief based on the regions that you guys use for your asset management. When the branch chief gets that email, they will log on, and you can see here my PHA properties, and you'll see that this page is customized for the branch chief. So they're going to see here transactions assigned to Christine as the branch chief that do not have a reviewer yet. So she'll know, she'll get a list here, she can go in, and this Allendale needs to have a reviewer assigned to it. And she would just come in here and she can assign a specialist, and she can assign a funding specialist. I'm not going to do that at the moment, just because I don't want to assign someone who isn't going to be working on that. The other thing that you will notice that you all have access to all of the RAD transactions. So you'll have transactions that you're assigned and you're responsible for, but you can also use these search filters to look at the other transactions or to track down transactions if questions come up. So in this case, I want to do a search on a transaction that's in the state of Maryland. I would just drop down here, I would find Maryland, and I would filter. And when I filter, I'm going to get a list that pops up that shows me all of the RAD transactions that are in the state of Maryland. And I can click into any of these, and I'm going to pick a closed transaction, but you'll see here the status, they're closed or they're active. You'll see who the reviewer is. You can see a few that have been assigned over time. So I'm just going to click in here to Bell Park Tower, and this is what the main OAMPO page looks like. So this is going to give you a little bit of basic information about the property itself and the RAD transaction. It's going to tell you the name of the property. It's going to have a PIC number. One good thing that's helpful to know about RAD is a lot of these AMPs come in with multiple transactions. They've been split for whatever reason. They're scattered sites. Part of it might be a tax credit deal. Part of it might be conventional financing. So sometimes you will see a letter or a group of letters added to the end of the PIC number. Just know that this core PIC number is what you would find in the HUD PIH systems if you need to look for that for any reason. It tells you the total units that are converting through RAD. It tells you the PHA name, and then it gives you a little bit of contact information. It'll tell you who the PHA primary contact is, which is usually the executive director. It will tell you, here's the email address for them. It'll tell you the transaction manager. That is who in the RAD team is working on that deal. So that'll give you a good point of contact if you need to talk to the transaction manager. And then once it reaches a certain point in the RAD process, it's going to be assigned a closing coordinator, and you can see that right here. You'll get to see who the closing coordinator is. And then the closing coordinator will also update the OGC attorney. On this side of the page, you can see these are going to be your OAMPO contacts. So you can see Cindy up here at the top. Stacy Harrison right now is serving as the RECAP headquarters point of contact. And then you'll have a branch chief assignment, an OAMPO RAD specialist assignment, and a funding specialist assignment that can be made. As we start to get through the RAD transactions, you'll start to see emails coming your way. And we're doing this sort of in the reverse waterfall. So if something happens that triggers an email, if the OAMPO RAD specialist has been assigned, that's who will get the email notification. If the RAD specialist hasn't been assigned yet, that email notification will go to the branch chief. And if the branch chief isn't assigned yet, it goes to the point of contact. And there's a regional point of contact for each state here at OAMPO. And it's really going to be up to your individual regions how they're going to assign these and when they're going to assign these. And I'm sure you'll have the opportunity to weigh in on that. You might want to know earlier than later. Some groups might prefer to wait until the financing plan has been submitted. That's going to just be as you get familiar with the program and you guys decide region by region or nationally how you want to handle that. But the emails that start to notify, that's how they'll be determined who's getting that email notification. It pulls a little bit of information about the transaction itself and where it is in the process. So it would have an anticipated closing date. If it has not closed, this is when they're anticipating this deal is going to be closed. And then once it does close, you'll see the actual closing date will be added to your screen. It's picking up the approved rehab assistance payments from the transaction. It's also going to pick up any environmental issues that might require ongoing monitoring by the OAMPO group. And these would have been raised during the review by the transaction manager, and they should be written into the RCC most likely. So things like lead-based paint, asbestos, other environmental issues. These will come to you pre-populated, but you have the ability to check and uncheck these. So after the deal is closed and you're responsible for monitoring it, this might be something that you want to change to match where you stand right now with the deal. So if it came in with asbestos, you know asbestos has been cured, you might want to uncheck that and just make a comment so that you know it existed, but you don't have to worry about it anymore. And that'll be something that kind of hands off to the OAMPO team. There are a couple of things that we do. So when the financing plan is anticipated, the transaction manager has a form that they complete and they submit that form. This is an email notification for OAMPO, and it's just telling you that the deal is getting close to submitting their financing plan. It may or may not be an action point for you, but it's just a heads up that they're getting close. Then when that financing plan is actually submitted by the public housing agency, you'll get another email that just lets you know that event has happened. And these have all been automated so that they're going out automatically, and we're hoping that makes everybody's life easier. Nobody has to remember to send an email. Nobody has to remember that heads up. It's just kind of there for you guys as you're working through these transactions. Over on the right-hand side here, you will see the information that relates basically to the HAP contract. Now, this is the piece that we are changing a little bit. This screen will change slightly on Tuesday. Basically, what's going to happen is we're tracking the number of HAP contracts to be issued and the HAP contract number, and when we have a fully executed HAP, they'll be uploaded here so you'll be able to see them. The change that we're going to make to this is that right now what we've been doing is we've said there are 2 HAP contracts, and we would put both of those HAP contract numbers in the same field. For the funding specialist, that would be a little bit difficult to track. So what we're going to do is have this change so that there's a separate field for each HAP contract number, and it will show you the number of units related to that HAP contract number. So when the funding specialist gets the HAP contract numbers back and they come onto the resource desk to log that information, they will be able to have 2 fields for each HAP contract number, one with the number and one with the number of units. And when that happens and they enter that information, that again is going to trigger one of those automatic emails that will go back to the closing coordinator, letting them know that the funding specialist has logged on and entered that number. The other piece that we're working on is actually the email notification to the funding specialist. We're going to have an email notification when the RCC is issued, and the email will have all the information that the funding specialist needs to move into SharePoint to get those HAP contract numbers. And it will look exactly the way that I believe the closing coordinators are sending emails out now. It should be very familiar, but we're just going to have that automated by the system so that you don't have to do that any longer. So I am going to just take a peek here. This is sort of just your basic information about the transactions and your contacts before I scroll into the documents and just see if we have any questions. So again, you can raise your hand or you can submit a question, whichever is easier for you. And I'm just going to do a quick scroll. And we have no questions, so we're good. Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
What are the fields that branch chiefs would be able to change from that? Is it limited? What information are we able to?
As a branch chief, you will be able to change anything on the, anything that relates to the transaction, and it'll go down further. So a RAD specialist will really only be able to change for transactions that they're assigned. The branch chief will be able to change transactions within their region. So it'll give you you know, kind of an overview and an oversight of what's going on. It also gives a backup if one of your specialists is on vacation and something needs to be entered. It gives you the ability to go in and be able to do that. Now, the HAP contract numbers, I will just mention this when we go live with the new piece. The HAP contract number is only going to be able to be submitted by the funding specialist. We're not going to be able to change that, so they have control over that piece of it. So the bottom half of this page, well, let's say the middle of this page, this is document exchange back and forth, and this is the piece that in the memo that you received talked about things that were going to be here in the near future. So there's still some discussion about what the best way to move these documents back and forth is between OAMPO and the RAD team, and we're going to work that all out, but we've kind of got a placeholder here, which you can feel free to start using to upload documents. So what happens here right now, the way we originally set this up, was there were a few documents where OAMPO had to actually sign the document. So in that case, when the document is uploaded, you would see a link here. You would be able to go in, click on the link, download the document, sign it, scan it back, and resubmit it. And so you would upload your signed document right here. OAMPO also gets to sign off on this. So if you can put the date that you reviewed it and then the date it was accepted. It might be that you didn't accept it and it needed to be resubmitted. And it's just a little tracking place for you to keep track of all of this. Once you accept a submission, then the closing coordinator and the PHA will get an email notifying them that it's been accepted by OAMPO. When it's uploaded, you get the email letting you know that something in one of your deals has been uploaded. So we have 3 documents here that right now we believe are going to require OAMPO's signature, and this would be the way to kind of move them back and forth. We also have the NAs, so if you know that it doesn't apply in this case, you can just check the NA, and that kind of is an indication that that piece is taken care of. The other type of document that we had are ones that you need to review, but you don't need to sign and return. And it's the exact same process. When the document's uploaded by the PHA or the closing coordinator, you'll get you'll see a link here, you'll get an email notification this document's been uploaded. You can go on and do your review. We have the same 3 fields where you can say you've reviewed it, it might need to be resubmitted, you can accept it, and then there's place for comments. When you've accepted it, again, that email is going to go back to the PHA and or the closing coordinator, letting them know that you've reviewed it, you're good with it, it's good to go forward. They don't have to worry about the closing anymore. And again, this is a process that I believe is currently being worked out. Who's going to do what? What's the best way to send these documents back and forth preliminarily? And then this will be its kind of final home. So you'll have this document available to you throughout your review, even after the deal is closed. You'll still be able to come back and reference this document. Just a quick look. So I have a question from Mark. Mark, it just sent you a PIN number. If you enter that PIN number in, it should unmute you and you can ask us your question. High tech. It is. Okay. So I'm going to let you figure that out, Mark. And I have one other question up here. If you didn't get the PIN number, Mark, if you just type the question, we'd be happy to read that out loud. And then Barry also had a question. And Barry, Barry, you should be on.
Yeah, I'm here. I apologize. The specialists, are they located out of headquarters? What makes the individual RAD specialist, or where are they going to be positioned?
Specialists are, no, this is all regionally assigned. So you've got people working in all of your main offices. I saw Atlanta, I saw Fort Worth, I saw San Francisco, all over the country. Even to the point of that original regional contact, they're all regional contacts. So there is a headquarters contact here, but all of this work is being done in the field, and I'm guessing by the same team that has always been doing it. We're just trying to give you an easier way to coordinate it and to have that interaction with the RAD team and have this information to you a little more timely and a little more at your fingertips. So check on Mark. So Mark, it looks like you're not getting the PIN number. Could you type your question in for us and we can take a look at it that way, please? And let me just grab questions.
There it is. There's
Yeah. Make it larger.
Yeah.
Okay. Specialist out of headquarters. We got that one. Who and when does the upload to Laserfish? Okay. Well, so I'm going to defer to people in the room on that one. So Laserfish is an OAMPO way you guys store documents?
The signed server, the signed page would be responsible for uploading it.
So that
Once it closes.
yeah.
So,
So when the transaction closes and you have the documents, it sounds like that's going to be the RAD specialist's responsibility, which sounds like where it is now, right? That's not a change.
So ideally, it would be great if there would be a way, if it's electronically already, could be sent out.
Do you send a document electronically and someone else?
It to a Laserfish, there's an upload portion that goes to Laserfish.
So that, you know, that might just be a download and putting it into an email. That's certainly a piece that if there's something we can do to make that easier and we can figure out what that is, we're happy to customize this in ways that are going to make your lives easier. We're not trying to make your lives harder. We're just trying to get you more information and to have it more readily available. After the deal closes, there will still be a little bit of post-closing work that the RAD team does, but mostly then it's really being turned over to you. And this isn't designed to handle your entire process after post-closing. My guess is you guys have something in process that works for you. We're not trying to replace that. We're really trying to interact with you during that RAD transaction and to get it kind of through post-closing at this point in time. The next question is there a point of contact list of RAD parties, both in OAMPO and at RECAP?
Yes, there is, and Marilyn Edge has that list. If you haven't received it, we will make sure to get that out to you all.
Okay. Looks like that's it. Let's do one more check of hands. Okay, so now I'm going to move into this little bottom section here. And there, again, this is just trying to get the RAD transaction closer to you and easier for you to access than you maybe do right now by giving you access to some of the tools that the transaction managers are using on the resource desk. So we have 4 buttons here that will link you into information that occurred during the RAD transaction. One of them is a sources and uses document. And I did not click on all of these last night, and let's hope I don't live to regret that today. So this is the sources and uses that's being submitted by the PHA, and just what it says. You can see the sources of the funding and what the uses are projected to be. And this will be happening, you can see this at any time during the transaction. There is a version of this that's submitted with their application that's uploaded at the very beginning, and then the PHA will continue to upload this as the transaction progresses, making changes accordingly. So this one you should be able to pull up at any time.
So I'm sorry, when you said it updates, so it replaces or you will have all of these?
It replaces. It will show you the most recent update, yes. And then the pro forma, same thing. This information comes in with their application, but as they are working through a transaction, there are going to be changes. They're going to log on and make those changes. You'll be seeing the most recent one every time you pull it up.
Well, I mean, can we see like the change changes, like,
That's why, yeah,
yeah,
asking you,
yeah, because if they changed it, is it like, they just crossed it out with, you know, and then put another.
We won't be able to see old information.
You won't see the old information. I mean, basically, when they're submitting an application, they haven't started their transaction. They have, this is what I think it's going to be, but now I'm going to submit my application. I'm going to receive an award. I'm going to start talking to a transaction manager. I'm going to find out if what I thought is going to work. I might have been thinking I was going to do tax credits and I didn't get tax credits, so now I might be doing a more conventional form of financing. So there are things that are going to change in this process that are going to make that original application, sources and uses, for example, pretty much irrelevant. The transaction can change in a fashion that I'm not sure that it leads a lot of benefit to you to see how it changed. I'm not ruling that out. That was just the thought process that went into showing the most recent. It's also what our transaction managers look at more often than not. They're looking at the most recent, where are you right now? And kind of, is that matching up what we're talking about? Is this matching our conversation? Oh, well, you told me that you're remodeling, you're going to do a rehab of one of these buildings, but I don't see any relocation costs. What are you going to do, with your tenants, that sort of thing. So this is what the transaction managers are also looking at. I throw that out there. I think if you have an internal discussion and you talk to Tom and you decide that's not enough and you want more, certainly raise that question. It's just a matter of what's too much noise and what is what you really need to know. And we were trying to kind of keep it to what we thought was most helpful for you guys. So those are the two that will be updated continuously through the process. And then these last two will be coming from the RCC when it is issued, the restructuring commitment. And this will show you, for the HAP contract, it's going to show you what and I picked a deal that was closed before we started doing our auto RCCs, so it's not going to show you on this particular deal. But what you will see here is basically the Exhibit A. It'll show you how many units, what the unit size is, what the rent is, what the utility allowance is. If there's more than one HAP contract to be issued, you will see a separate grid for each HAP contract. So it's kind of as we are approaching closing, what we expect that rent schedule to look like. And then the last one is similar. And again, I picked a closed deal. We can look at another one, but there will be a scope of work. So if there was a rehab component to this transaction where they've agreed to a certain scope of work, immediately following the closing, this is where you will see that. And it will list each line item and the dollar amount for that scope of work.
Is there anything on the timeline?
On the timeline, it's in the RCC, and I'm looking to see if we've added it on this page at the top. There is estimated construction completion date right here. So that should tell you how long that construction is expected to take that goes with that scope of work. And then the bottom here are just some more details that are related more to the OAMPO team. So the account executive has coordinated with the funding specialist. If affirmative fair housing marketing plan, the date that was forwarded to the FHEO field office. If the 2530 is required, yes or no, and then if yes, the date it was approved. And then the DUNS number. Right now, we are asking for the owners to provide the DUNS number. That's a relatively new ask for the RAD team. So we left the field here that's writable for you guys also, so that if you want to put that number in, you can. Going forward, you should have that number being provided to you by the owner. So on your older deals, your closed deals, you won't see that necessarily, but going forward, that should start to come in for you and being provided for you. And then this is just free-form notes for you to enter as you're working on the page to keep track of things that are important to you. And so again, it's very simple. We tried to not make it overly complicated. We tried to pull the information that we thought would be most useful. The great thing about the resource desk is it's very flexible as far as a tool. So I think after you've used it for a little while, if you're finding things that you're continuously asking for, definitely bring those back up to the RAD team and see, you know, it can be changed to work for you guys. So it's a tool that we're trying to make your lives easier, not harder. So you need to just, you know, keep in mind that you can talk to your supervisors up the chain, and, you know, if it's not working for you, let us know. And same thing, you know, on our side, the transaction managers and our closing coordinators, for things that aren't working for them or that they find they're getting requests for all the time, they might say, you know, hey, OAMPO is always asking me for XYZ, can we add that to their page? So it's a, you know, it's a coordination effort to try to make this work for the OAMPO group. So just let us know.
I didn't see the 25/30 there, and I know in some cases it's not applicable, but for those that are, you know, creating the new entity. Yes,
you mean to actually upload the document?
Document X too, because that's what we have required, signature document is required. So why would not be?
Is it something that's done entirely within OAMPO, or does it need to go back over to the closing team? It was there for a while.
I mean, they would have to do 25/30. But no, we are the ones that do it.
They send them
to the field. Yeah, the field is doing them, so that's why, I'm wondering why it's not part of document.
It actually was.
The memo says with the introduction of the OAMPO page and the resource says the status of the 25/30 review is on track, but it doesn't necessarily have the documentation.
The tracking would be here, where we're just saying yes and the date.
But I know for Southwest, we are seeing most of them are not the THAs. There's an entity that they're spinning off.
Right.
So, I mean, in most cases, they're required.
Okay.
And if not for the ownership, it's definitely for the management.
So I made a note to find out. At one time, it was a document up here in discussion, and it got removed for whatever reason. So if it's something that needs to come back to the closing team, it might be something we want to add up here. If not, it's very easy to add and upload down here. So it's at least right here beside this date that it was approved. You could approve it and put the approval date in and upload a document right beside it. So I made a note to kind of discuss that and can have that one tweaked whichever way that goes.
Similarly, I was wondering, you have the DUNS number on there, and when Matt Viviani was in here, and I've run into this also, yeah, when we're sending the contracts for work, they don't want us to write that number on there. They want to have the separate documentation to print out from the owner. So if recap is receiving that from the owner, is there a way to upload that so that we don't have to ask for it twice?
I do not think we receive the documentation. I think we just get the number, but I will double check on that. The question on the, I was supposed to be repeating questions, I apologize. If you couldn't hear her, was if the RAD team is receiving the DUNS paperwork that goes with the number, could they upload that also as opposed to just putting the number in? Since that's coming from the owner, that might be an easier thing to get. Just ask them to upload it right there. So I'm making notes here on questions to raise, and I will add that one to it.
Connection from the morning session. You're really listening.
Okay, so I'm going to scroll through questions online again. Okay, what the question is, what about Sam's registration?
It's a separate registration.
Yeah, it's required.
That is required now for any payment.
So in the same way that you're tracking the DUNS number, is there a way to track whether the SAM's registration is in?
It is something that they have to have done before we can get the contract into the system. So again, I think the idea would be if that's something that OAMPO can make sure that they've done so that we're not behind the 8 ball already by the time it gets to us.
And is that something that the owner takes care of?
Yeah.
So maybe that's something we would think about adding right there with that DUNS number on the owner page. Okay.
The owner doesn't do them?
No, the owner
They
does
do
it,
it, but
need that added?
The what?
I mean, it's,
We don't usually know their
No, because their ID.
No, but to make sure that they've done it, so that it's all ready.
Well,
And the same
most of them
concept.
have it already,
Yeah.
when they come from via age, so it's not something,
They're
it's
not
not
worried.
registration,
They're
if
not
they're
concerned
creating a new entity, for sure would be required on the DUNS number, and those two things would be, but.
Okay, and the next question is also, if the 2530 is submitted electronically, could this system identify the submission ID number on this screen? This system cannot pick up that number electronically because it doesn't talk to the 2530 system. It's easy to give you a field if you want to be able to enter it, but it can't automatically pick it up.
So a field that where it could be entered, so that way we can go back into apps and pull it.
And be able to pull it up.
Okay, it's really hard just to do it. I mean, it's a lot easier to do a search when you have the
ID,
submission
yeah,
number.
Submission ID number.
Yeah.
We can follow up with Marilyn and Devasia on that.
Okay.
Just saves us some hunting and time.
When the 2530 is in review mode, does or will it be done electronically or manually? So that, I think, is completely an internal question for OAMPO. So we're not changing,
Yeah.
I would say this, we're not changing your processes really here. So however you do 2530 now, it should stay the same.
Are you able to print these questions in general, all the questions?
Yeah, we'll get them.
Okay, so make sure we answer them all.
Yeah. Okay, any more questions? We got Mark, we got Michelle. Okay. As I said, kind of easy, short, hopefully not painful, hopefully very helpful. There is a link on the RAD resource desk where you can send emails if you're having technical issues. It's a good resource. Just drop us an email and we can help you with logons. As I mentioned, all of you should have logon credentials, so if you don't, you might want to talk to your branch chief or to your regional point of contact and just let us know. And it's, I would say, 95% operational. You could go on and it would be working right now. I am on the live site as I've demoed this on the live site. And then the TAP contract piece is the last piece that we need to split this into multiple fields for multiple contracts. And you should hopefully see that on Tuesday when you log on. And again, my name was Linda. I sit behind that RAD resource desk email. So
this is a really great program. You know, kudos to Jen and her team that got together to try to get this going, because the biggest problem that we've had in the past year is handshaking, recap, you know, with the OAMPO field staff. And, you know, it may not do everything right now, but it definitely kickstarts the relationship back and forth. You know who your people are, and that's really a big piece when you don't know who you're supposed to even contact. So I think once you jump into it and you're using it, I think more questions will pop up. But also, I think you'll get a feel for, you know, going back and forth with the you know, recap to move forward. So I think it has lots of legs, lots of opportunity. And if you have more questions, you know, definitely, we're winging it on some of the answers. We don't really know them. And I know if Marilyn was in this room, she'd be able to answer them right off the bat, because she is the original point of contact. But we'll definitely follow up with her and have much better answers to all those questions.
Mike, give them the information about the call in at 3,
Okay.
where Marilyn should be here to help answer general questions about RAD.
Okay, so we have a call scheduled for everyone that's on the phone and in the room. Discussion on challenges and best practices related to RAD. Again, it's in this room, 6155.
RAD specialist, let's call it. What is it that they'll be able to do? What is their, when they see, could you show us kind of what they will be
So their screen, the question was what would the RAD specialist screen look like and what would they be able to do? Their screen is identical to the one I have up right now. Instead of drop-down boxes here, it'll be gray like this where they can't make those changes, but everything else will be the same. Again, the HAP contract number is going to be controlled by funding specialists only. And as you scroll down, all of this will be the same. So really the biggest difference between the different user types is going to be what you see when you click into My PHA Libraries, because it will show you what's assigned to you and what's unassigned for those people that assign transactions. Everybody will have the search features at the top. And then once you click into a transaction itself, it should be very similar. The only things that some people won't be able to update are the contact information for the OAMPO team.
They will only be able to see, they will only be able to see the transactions assigned to them.
That's what will show up on their main bar here, but they can search and you can look at all of the PBRA transactions, whether they're in your region or not. And that was the request. Again, if that doesn't work for you guys, that's a changeable thing. That's a pretty easy change. But we just felt like as what we kind of discussed and what it came down to was, especially at this beginning where you might be filling in for people or you're going to kind of be working through how it's all going to work, it's probably going to be most helpful to be able to see anything if you absolutely needed to. So, you know, we kind of limit your universe when you sign in so you don't have all that noise if you don't need it. But if you were to need to go to see something, you have a way to get there. And it might just be a question of who owns that, who is that assigned to, who do I need to hand something off to, or, you know, something that simple.
Is there a section for reports? Can those reports, like the pipeline report and the chat, are those reports somewhere on here as well?
So right now we have two reports for you. It's a PBRA transactions where the RCC has been issued, and we have a HUD stats report, and a HUD stats report, which I'm not going to open because it takes a little bit of time. It's a lot of information, and that will give you just a ton of information about the transaction in general. You'll see when the CHAP was issued, you will see when RCCs are issued, estimated RCC dates, estimated closing dates, actual closings as a TBV, PBRA. It just has a whole full of information about the RAD transaction. And that's kind of the standard HUD report PIH uses at FHEO people. It's kind of the standard access to information that we use throughout HUD.
If you have new staff, do we contact you? Do we just email you and say, because it looked like you had a populated drop-down list of names for them? How did you get that list?
I got that list from Jen, actually.
Okay.
So anybody can come onto the resource desk. I'm going to log out here.
Okay.
They can, on this login screen, you can say a new user, and you can request access, and I'm thinking we should add you guys right here. So you can say that you're a HUD OAMPO. Make myself a note. And when the resource desk gets that information, we will have a contact that we can contact and just verify that you are with OAMPO and where we should plug you in. Are you know, what's your role? And then once that's done, we'll activate the account and you'll be good to go. You'll show up in the drop-down boxes.
Good question.
You're not on there.
You're not on there. We're not on there. We don't need them. We don't have to be assigned anything. We're not there.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. That's good. Thanks, everyone, for participating.
Any other questions? Let's check one more time, because we did say this was, we still have some time.
Questions?
These would be good to drop and drag. There we go. There we go. Thanks, Barry.
Okay, that is it. We're still good.
The specialist out of HQ,
That was the early one.
Oh, early
Right, and we're going to send a list. We'll have all the names on there.
That was early one, yeah. So we have no more questions.
No more questions.
Okay.
So we're good.
Again, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.